So, in the Egan's developmental model, let us first see the pre-helping phase. As we all know, it has a pre-helping phase and three stages: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. In the pre-helping phase, there is this skill called as attending. This is required of the helper only. Though here the helper must be physically and psychologically attending, that is, he should be available to the client always, as long as this pre-helping phase continues, and also throughout the counseling stages. So the posture of the counselor and the verbal messages of the client and attending to the non-verbal messages of the client play a very important role here. The helper must listen to the verbal messages of the client attentively and intently, and the helper should listen to the non-verbal cues as well. He or she should observe the tone, the silences, the pauses, the gestures, facial expressions, and postures. What is this person trying to communicate? What are his feelings? What feelings is he trying to communicate? And what is the behavior? All these the helper should be attending to. Now we'll come to stage 1 skills. Stage 1 skills are responding to the client and self exploration by the client. So, responding to the client is the helper skill, self exploration is the client skill. The helper skills here include empathy, respect, genuineness, and concreteness. The client skills here include exploring the feelings and behaviors associated with the problem areas of life and concrete deepening search, that is self exploration. Here, the first one is accurate empathy or empathy. Empathy is the helper must respond to the client in a way that shows that he listened and understands how the client feels and what the client is saying about himself. It is not only enough to understand, but he must also communicate the same to the client. Second is respect. Respect means the helper should show the client that the helper is respecting him, he wants to be available to him, and he wants to be with working wants to work with him. The genuineness means the helper must be spontaneous, he must be open, and he cannot hide behind the role of a counselor. First of all, he is a human being and he should behave like a human being to the client. And then concreteness. Concreteness is whenever the client tries to evade real issues by speaking in generalities, the helper must ground the helping process in concrete feelings and concrete behavior. His language cannot be vague. So these four are the helper skills at stage 1. Now we'll see the client skills at stage 1. Here the client has only one single most important skill required, that is self exploration. Self exploration is exploring feelings, behavior associated with problem areas of life, and in this stage itself, Egan said that this search should be as concrete as possible, which shall gradually deepen as the person in need comes to trust the helper and his skills. These are the stage 1 skills. Now we'll go to stage 2 skills. Please remember, whenever we are going to the next stage, the helper skills of the previous stage will also be followed in the next stage, and in addition to the previous stage skills, some other skills are also required. Now let us see stage 2 skills. Stage 2 is integrative understanding by the helper and dynamic self understanding by the client. So this is seeing the bigger picture by integrating all the bits and pieces of information given by the client, and also helping the client see the bigger picture from the bits and pieces of information that he has disclosed. Here, the helper skills include accurate empathy, self disclosure, immediacy, confrontation, and alternative frames of reference. The client skills include non defensive listening and dynamic self understanding. Let us see what accurate empathy is. Accurate empathy is the helper must communicate to the client an understanding not only of what the client actually says, but also of what he implies by saying something. However, the helper must not invent anything now itself. He is only to the degree that he is helpful only to the degree that he is accurate, right? Next is self disclosure. Here the helper is willing to share his own experiences with the client, as it will help the client understand himself better. Third one is immediacy. Here the helper is willing to explore his own relationship to the client. You may talk and the here and now client counselor interactions. Next is confrontation. This is very important as the helper challenges the discrepancies, distortions, games, and smoke screens in the client's life and in his interactions within the helping relationship itself, to the degree that it helps the client develop a kind of self understanding that leads to constructive behavioral change. This is about confrontation, that is challenging the client, the discrepancies, distortions, games, and smoke screens in the client's life, so that the client also will develop an understanding, self understanding, and only then he will be able to lead his life through a behavioral change. And the fifth skill required is alternative frames of reference. Here, the helper can offer client alternative frames of reference for viewing his behavior, to the degree that these alternatives are more accurate and more constructive than those of the client. These five are the stage 2 skills required by the helper. And now coming to the client skills. The most important client skills required in stage 2 of developmental model of counseling are non-defensive listening and dynamic self-understanding by the client. Non-defensive listening to the is while listening to the helper, and while the helper is engaged in immediacy or confrontation, the client should be able to listen without being defensive. This non defensive listening should be extended not only in the counseling process but also to the environment outside the helping sessions, also. This is non defensive listening. Another skill required by the client in stage 2 is dynamic self understanding. Dynamic self understanding is not only understanding himself or herself in an abstract way, but it should be such that it shall cause a behavioral change. These are the stage 2 skills. Now, coming to the last stage, that is stage 3 skills of Egan's developmental model of counseling. Here, action should be facilitated. Stage 3 skills constitute facilitating action on behalf of the helper and action on behalf of the client. So, helper skills include all the skills of stage 1 and 2, and also helping in an action program and giving support to the client. The client skills include cooperation, risk, and also acting. This is the most important skill required by the client. So cooperation is cooperation, why that is he should be included and also participate involved in the planning strategy. He shall learn to take smaller risk for a smaller uh, risk, and it is actually safe to risk himself, that he should understand, and this should be reinforced for success. Whenever there is a failure, again the helper must support him. Acting is the most important aspect, and there is no substitute for acting. Acting has many forms. It may mean stopping some self destructive activity, or it may mean starting on some program of growth. It may also mean developing some new attitudes, such as sense of self worth, through a variety of processes. And also, it is very important to remember that one should not be counseled to undertake an action program unless he or she has the skills to carry out that program effectively. If required, skills training should be given before action stage. So this is stage 3 of Egan's developmental model. Thank you.